Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming Relentless. I am your host, elenoa.mccabe. I'm an IFBB bikini pro and an online health and fitness coach. And today I have a very special guest. This is her second time on the Becoming Relentless podcast. We actually chatted about a full year ago now. So if you guys haven't seen that episode, go back 1 year from today and you'll be able to find that. But I'm super excited to have Marissa back on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be back. I can't believe it's been a full year.
I know, me too. The time has flown.
It really
So,
has.
just for people who are maybe just getting caught up as well, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah. So my name is Marissa Morose. I am actually a licensed physical therapist assistant, but I started a bodywork business for athletes and bodybuilders about a year ago, actually, about a year and a half ago. And I work specifically with athletes to help with overall mobility and recovery, especially in the bodybuilding world. I've been very blessed to have the opportunity to work on athletes at the Olympia and the Arnold and, shows kind of all over.
Yeah. Yeah, it is so good to have you back on. I want to ask, so as far as those bigger shows go with like the Olympia and the Arnold, are you allowed to say, like, who've been some of the athletes that you've worked with?
Yeah, yeah. So last year when we talked, because it was last August and it was about like 2 months or so away from the Olympia. And it was my first time going. It was my first time going to do body work. I've been as a spectator, but last year I was like, you know what? I'm going to just see who I can get. I messaged probably every single qualified athlete. I ended up with four people going into the show. And then I actually picked up like four more athletes when I was there. So they were ranging all different categories. And then at the Arnold, I upped my game a little bit and I did have the opportunity to work on Aaron Banks, who is a Mr. Olympia
Wow.
champ. Yep. And then I also worked on Mike Sommerfeld, who ended up taking the Arnold Classic championship that Arnold.
Yeah.
Um, and yep, I those are the two biggest names, but all of the athletes that I work on for the Olympia and the Arnold, of course, are super prestigious. I'm so lucky to work on them. And I'm not quite sharing who I'm working with this Olympia, but I have like I think 10 or 11 people booked
Yeah.
going into it. So I'm so freaking excited.
That is amazing. I think getting to, like, work on high level athletes like that and also, like, learning their bodies and just knowing that you're helping them get that 1% better for a
Yeah.
show like the Olympia or the Arnold, oh, that is just it's wild to think about, but that's so cool.
Yeah, I'm so blessed because I think it requires a lot of trust on the athletes and
Mhm.
also, and I don't take that lightly. Like I understand that they're probably like, who is this girl that's messaging me? You're trusting someone with your body so close to show. I worked on Aaron like one day out from the Arnold. And so it's like, if I mess something up, then I'm kind of screwing over the athlete. So it requires a lot of trust on their part. And I'm so fortunate that athletes trust me to, be able to show them that what I
Yeah.
do is
Yeah, and that's such an important part of, like, having a business, like, a business similar to what you do, right? Like, as a coach,
Mhm.
like, I feel like kind of the same way because when I
Right.
put my athletes on stage, like, I know that they did the work, but if I messed up on their plan along the way or if I messed up their peak week, like, that's just it's so much responsibility because they are doing the work and they're doing all of these things, and so we're there to help get them across the finish line or help get them in like, improve them, so I know that feeling, but it is also so rewarding and very fulfilling to then see them go and win, like, whatever that looks like for them and, like, achieve
Right.
success. So it's a very, very fulfilling job. It does there's a lot of pressure though, I think.
Yes. Yeah. And luckily with what I do, I don't feel like there's truly, there's not anything that I could do that would, like, mess up their physique, so to say. I mean, of course, I could leave, like, marks or something that weren't supposed to be there, but I'm, of course, super mindful of that, so I
Right.
know that that won't happen. But from a coaching standpoint, it probably is a little bit more pressure because it is just in all how their body responds.
Right. Yeah. I think as long as when we're working with athletes, like my biggest thing that I see in successful coaches or people who are running like successful businesses that work with athletes is having that level of care. And then to
Right.
your point, like building the trust with them. So I know when we last spoke, you had just launched your business, you were just getting into it. So now that we have like a year, what are some of the like lessons or takeaways or changes that have happened, specifically like within your business?
God, there are just so many.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because you look back, like I really try to be reflective of the last year. And I look back in gratitude, of course, because it's just insane to me what has come my way in the last year. And it's not to boast, it's not to throw it out there and be like, look at what I'm doing. But it's just in a way of like, wow, this is really, really monumental just in how the way the universe works, how God works, like all of those things. But to answer your question, I think just the overall theme of trusting yourself, not looking at the end result, trying to just take it one step at a time and taking it day by day, step by step, not getting wrapped up in the small things. And that really has carried over in like every aspect of my life. Just not sweating the small stuff. Just
Mhm.
you only have control over so many things and just take them as they come.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. There's so much in that statement too that I wanna dive into. So, when you talk about, like, not sweating the small stuff, taking things day by day, what are some of the things that changed, like, in your day by day?
Really, I think not sweating the small stuff, you can't control you can't control a lot. You can't control what people think of your business, you can't control what people are saying about the business, are saying about, you know, whatever it is. But I think knowing what your intentions are and if your intentions are always good and pure, that goes the longest way. So maybe someone comes to me and I'm not their cup of tea or the service isn't their cup of tea and they not that they have to like go and talk crap about it, but just the fact of like they may say, "Yeah, I'm not going to go back." I used to get so wrapped up in like, "Oh my god, it has to be perfect. Everyone has to like me. Everyone has to like the service."
Mhm.
I can't control that. I can only provide my best service and what I think that athlete needs. And if it's not a fit for them, it's not on me, it's not on them. Everyone has a personal preference. So that's just one example of like not sweating the small stuff is that you really just can't control what people do or what they
Right.
think.
Yeah. 100%. And it is hard sometimes to not overthink that, so I think just being able to tell yourself like, "Hey, maybe I wasn't their cup of tea and that's okay." Like,
Right.
being able to move forward from that, but I totally understand in some cases, like, it's almost like rejection therapy,
Yes.
um, because you might have, like, a good session or, in my case, like, I work in sales now, so I
Oh
have,
yeah.
my 9 to 5 sales job, and then I also still coach, but I'm cold calling all day long, and I get rejection every day, and at first, it was so hard to not be like, "Oh, I wonder if they just hated my voice," or maybe, like, what I said wasn't good enough or whatever the case may be, and then I learned it's not that, like, you cannot get bogged down in the small details, to your point, like, it just maybe it wasn't a fit, and that's okay, like, maybe they didn't feel like talking to me on the phone, and that's okay.
Exactly, and I think that that's such a hu I think that that's really something that's changed for me too, is I really have always had a hard time with taking stuff personally, and letting it feed into the narrative of, well, I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not whatever the enough was. And you do have to kind of just expose yourself to that. And that just comes naturally with, I think, with growing up, with, having a business, having a job, whatever it is, you're always going to experience that, but not letting it actually fuel that belief and understanding, no, this isn't, again, it's not about me and it's not even about the other person. It's just the circumstance.
Mhm.
So when you take it off of yourself and put it into like, the problem is the problem, it's not the person is the problem. I think that that's when you can separate it from yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So I do wanna ask, like, was there a decision that you've made that has just, like, completely changed the trajectory of your life in the last year?
Yeah, I think honestly, even there have been a lot of decisions, big or small. I even just starting the business was a decision. And then from there, kind of as a domino effect of like this decision leads to other decisions, and that decision leads to other decisions. And they're not always going to be these huge life altering things. And with starting the business, that's a pretty big life altering decision. Within that, there's all these other scenarios that come and you have to make decisions from there. But sometimes life does throw huge life decisions at you. I unfortunately had to make a decision this year to step away from the life that I knew. And, I was married before, and I really made the decision to step away from that. And that's a huge one because you are really walking away from a life that you knew and stepping into the unknown. But I think if you have trust in it and you follow it, then the risk is, or the reward is bigger than the risk.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's definitely multi layered, but that's a big one that has really shifted
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am sorry to hear that, you know, you went through that. I know that that can't have been easy.
Right. Well, thank
Leading yeah,
you.
I think I guess I'm kind of curious because so I was in a 7-year-long relationship, and it also ended in December. We weren't married or engaged, but we
Yeah,
did very
yeah.
much like we dated from 21 to 28. So like
Right.
the
Yep.
majority of my 20s. And to your point, like you envision a life that's going down a certain path and maybe it's with somebody. And so when that ends, it kind of leaves you, or at least for me, I'll speak for myself, like it left me feeling like I didn't know who I was. And unfortunately, the end of the relationship also came at a time where I was like stepping away from bodybuilding because I needed to repair my health and I was starting a new job. So I had like major life decisions and transitions occurring all at the same time, and I feel like it's taken me up to this point in the year to, like, reorient myself, and that I think that that's just me making all of these decisions all at once and then being like, "Okay, now I have to pick up the pieces and figure it out." But, like, for you, when you went through that and you did make that decision and you stepped into the unknown, like, what were some of the things that you did to, like, come back to yourself or, like or stand in your identity and kind of start to move forward?
Yeah, and I think what you described is pretty much kind of where I'm at right now, and I think, but I also just think that that's what happens when you go through these huge life-altering moments, is that everything happens at once, and it's kind of like, "Okay, I'm making a decision on, a breakup or a move or whatever, job change or whatever that life decision is for you." But you do that and you commit to the decision, and then all these other pieces start to fall apart. And for me, in the last, well, I mean, it's already September, so I won't even say 6 months, but like it feels like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But in the last year, like there were little things that were kind of, when I look back on it, I'm like, that actually was heading down this road.
Mhm.
And, there were friendships that were crumbling. I had quit my PT job to pursue the bodywork full time. All these little things that were decisions along the way ended up kind of erupting into this big life decision of, okay, now I'm getting divorced. Now I'm changing my whole trajectory of my life. But I think that when you can really understand that and just accept it, yeah, you're going to have time to heal. The pieces are going to need to be picked up. But once you get through it, you do kind of find like not your identity in it, but just you learn more about yourself along the way. And I know that sounds cheesy,
Yeah.
but it's really is true. Like, so yeah.
I think it sounds cheesy, but we all, like, know it and say it because
Right.
it is true.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's why it's a cliche because
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah, exactly. It's so interesting to me that we are kind of going through these like parallel changes
Mhm.
because we're not the only ones. Like, I've also had close friends who have made a decision that ultimately you almost get courage from making like one decision, like your decision to start your business gives you confidence and courage to then make these other big life decisions. And you don't know it at the time, but
Right.
it seems like it compounds and grows, and I feel like that was very much the same for me as well. Like, I made one decision, and then all of a sudden I had the courage to, like, jump and make all of these other decisions. But in terms of, like, making that first one or taking that first step, like, how do you how do you know when it's time to, like, take that first step or, like, go down that path of uncertainty?
I think that it takes a lot of patience within yourself. I know for when I was making the decision to, leave the relationship that I was in or the marriage that I was in, it wasn't something that I took lightly, of course. But I think with any big life decision, you have to have patience within yourself and you will know when it's the right time because you won't be rushed into it. It will be something that has been very thought out. It will be something that you have sat with, prayed about, journaled about, really contemplated about. There are always going to be unknowns that are on the other side. And oftentimes that's what paralyzes people from not making those decisions because the fear becomes so much greater than what's presented in front of them. But I think even despite that fear being there, if you have the patience with yourself, have taken the time to consider it, pray about it, journal about it, sit with it, it just, I don't even know how to explain it. It just kind of becomes clear.
Mhm.
And it's not easy and it won't be easy, but you just have more clarity in the decision itself.
Right. Yeah, and I do wanna ask, so you mentioned, like, praying about it. In the
Mhm.
last year, do you feel like you've become more spiritual, or is that something that you've always had?
Yeah, I've definitely become more spiritual. I've always been, I've always been super faithful and my family has, always been centered around God and faith and things like that. But I think in the last, I would say maybe 2 or 3 years, I was kind of like, I kind of want to understand this more. I just want to, I know I have faith, I know I believe in God, all those things, but I just want to understand what the application is more. And that's something that's really grown in the last couple years, but especially in the last year. And it kind of actually seemed like the more that I grew in my faith, the more that these things in life started to happen where it required my faith to grow more.
Mhm.
And that's just how it's grown. And again, I think you're just kind of put in these life situations for that to be tested so that you have to rely solely on faith because it doesn't make sense sometimes.
Right. Yeah, and I could not agree more with that. I think in the last year, I was not raised in a, like, religious household.
Mhm.
My parents were very much of the, like, choose your beliefs. They do believe in God, but it wasn't, like, practiced in my
Yeah.
home. And then when I moved to Texas, I started feeling like I needed something more. Like, I was, like, going down a path of chasing, like, material things, and I could feel that it was just never going to be enough. Like, it didn't matter how many clients I got, how much money I was making, how much fun I was having, like, none of that ever felt fulfilling. And then I had a friend invite me to a church, like, here in Austin,
Mhm.
and within the last, I would say, year, like, same thing, the more that I've been curious about really getting into the word, because I started going to church and I, like, would feel refreshed and Sundays would be,
Yeah.
it would
Feel great.
and then, like, throughout the week, slowly, like, it would kind of die off, and then the next Sunday I'd go and be like, "Oh, I love this, like, I should do this more," and then I just realized, like, to your point, life is going to there's always gonna be challenges, but the more that I would, like, pray for something, the more that I would be tested in that realm, because I think that God was like, "Do you truly want that? Like, you are praying for this, but is that really what you want? Or is this, like, faith-based or is it fear-based? Like, are you asking
Yes,
for this?"
yes.
So it was, yeah. I think that getting closer to God and really getting into the word has completely changed, like, the trajectory of my life, and so I love to talk about it now. I think I was afraid to talk about it before, but I could some of the things that you've said even in this conversation, I'm like, I can tell that you are strong in your faith, so.
Yeah, and that honestly, I feel like that's the best compliment that anyone can receive, and I'm sure that you feel the same way because even with the business and again, I feel the same way of like you kind of get a feel for people of
Mhm,
do they feel comfortable talking about it? And that's something that I need to work on with my faith because I think that not that you should push God on people, because that's not what we want. But I think just not feeling shameful talking about it, regardless of what other people's views are.
mhm,
And with my faith specifically, I think that it really has just grown, and I think that you just can notice it in people,
mhm,
and it's not even really anything that's like, "Oh, now they're posting a bunch of God stuff," or "Oh, now they only talk about God," and it's like, "No, you actually don't even have to say anything, you can just tell by the way that someone carries themselves or, like,
mhm.
it's like a it I know what it is, it's the spirit of God,
Yeah.
but, like, for people who maybe are a little skeptical, it's like, there's just kind of this something from within, and I don't know, I think you can definitely tell when people are on a spiritual journey, and even just when people are doing the work in themselves,
Mhm.
maybe not even on a spiritual level, but just on an emotional intelligence level. You can tell when people have kind of faced themselves or haven't.
Yeah, and it's a hard thing to do, to, like, look in the mirror and be honest with yourself about where you're at and if the path that you're on is the one that's going to actually ultimately bring you closer to God. 'Cause I
Absolutely.
think there's there's a lot that I could dive into, I won't go down that rabbit hole, but I do think, like, it takes a lot, and I know for me still, like, looking in the mirror and being like, am I acting in a way that is actually in accordance to what I believe? And
Absolutely.
day by day, we're getting
Yeah.
there.
And
Yeah.
we all, no one's perfect and we all struggle and
Mhm.
all of that. But I think again, it goes back to the intention.
Yeah.
With anything, I think if your intention with your business is just to make money and to get reach and to, put your name out there, okay, yeah, but that's not gonna get you as far as, I want to help people, I want to serve people, I want to be the light that, God intends for me. I just wanna be the person that God has designed me to be.
Yes.
Whatever that looks like, that's just a me thing, and, I think, like you said, if you're kind of searching for things in material stuff and friendships and relationships and just earthly things, you're just it's not gonna be sustainable.
Yeah. You'll get to a point where you'll realize that, I think,
Yeah,
and I've just seen a lot more of, like, my close friends, the friends that have stuck with me throughout the years, like, we've all experienced this shift, and so
yeah.
I've definitely seen it. Um, do you th I guess, was there, like, a moment in the last year where you had that realization that you, like, couldn't keep living the way that you were and you wanted something different? Was there something that specifically sparked it, or was it more, like, slowly built up over time?
It wasn't it wasn't really like I woke up one morning and was just like, "Oh, I think I'm good." It
Mhm.
was there was a lot, and I think with losing any relationship or friendship or anything big like that, when you look back on it, you can add up the pieces and be like, "Okay, there actually was a lot that I either ignored or didn't realize or whatever." But in the moment when I was coming to my decision, um, ironically, I was getting closer to my faith. I had started at a new church as well and was going consistently. And I actually ended up getting baptized like 2 days before my 30th birthday. That's like a whole other story for another time. But I ended up getting baptized at my church, and that was 2 days before my birthday. And then my 30th birthday came, and I was with my mom and my aunt, and I had a conversation with my aunt, and she kind of just it wasn't even really anything specifically that she said, but she didn't know anything that was going on in my personal life, but she was just kind of like, Marissa, you don't have to be okay with the way things are. Like, you cannot be okay with it, and that's that." And it's something about that conversation had almost given me permission to not be okay with the things that I had convinced myself that I was okay with.
Mhm,
And it just opened my eyes to be like, "Wow, okay, I'm actually not okay with this." And this just shifts my perception on the way that I've been living. And then from there, I really started to assess, you know, what where are my goals? Are they aligned? What are the things that I have issues with? What are the things that my partner, and I have issues with? And just kind of assessing all areas of it. And I was praying like it was going out of business, journaling like my ink was going to run out. Like, I was diving in, but I really just needed clarity because I had kind of just something sparked in me where I was like, this no longer feels right. Like, I couldn't quite explain it. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I was like, this just feels wrong. It
mhm,
it no longer feels like the way that I'm supposed to be living my life. And from there, it just got stronger and stronger. And then I was like, okay, I don't know what the other side is going to look like, but I have to trust that this is where I'm meant to go.
mhm.
And that's where faith came in, and you're always met on the other side.
Yep. Taking that first step in faith and then everything else will work out and fall the way that it's supposed to, but I think that that's something that a lot of people can probably relate to in terms of it wasn't like this big canon event occurred and then you were like, "Yeah, I have to do this." It
Right.
was like
Exactly.
you were leaning into your faith. You had a conversation where somebody essentially just gave you permission. And then from there, it like the seed was planted and then it started to snowball. Um,
Absolutely.
I guess what are the biggest mindset shifts from the last time that we spoke to today that you've experienced or that you realize that you've had?
I think just the belief in myself that, I can do hard things. And, I think at this point now, it's so hard because when I look back on the first half of this year when I was going through my divorce and everything, I realized how much in the haze I was. I felt like I had no clear direction. I just felt like I was like going through life with my eyes closed. And now coming out of it and being a little bit more on the other side, there is a lot more clarity. But I think just trusting myself and God, and then understanding that I can do difficult things. And I don't I don't need anyone besides God to, like, dictate that for me. And not that I'm on this, like, oh, Miss Independent journey, but I think when you are with someone for a long time and when you're in a long-term relationship, you kind of do get dependent on what is their opinion? What do they think? You're living your life based on their input, and that's okay. That's, part of a partnership. But when it consumes you and you lose yourself in that, that's when it gets dicey. And
Mhm.
I realize how much I lost myself in my relationship, and now, just understanding who I am and what I can do.
Yeah, absolutely, and I love that you said that because you can do the hard things, and I think we said that last podcast, but I think it
Mhm.
was in a different context. It was in terms of, like, taking that step forward in starting your business. And so now it sounds like that's translated in a lot of different areas as well, just showing yourself that you can do hard things not only in business, but like in your personal life, for your friends, for your family, like whoever, you can show up and get through challenges and build resilience and be okay on the other side, even if it isn't easy or fun, you can. Um,
Right.
and I think a lot of the time, like myself included, we get held back by like fear of failure or thinking like, what are people going to think about this? When really the reality is like all that matters is what you're like, how you feel about yourself. If you can look in the mirror and be happy with who you are, and then just knowing that God's got you no matter what. You can make a misstep, you can go down a route and always be rerouted.
Yep.
Um, but I guess with the clarity that you've had, what are some of the, like, goals that have shifted for you? And it could be personal, it could be business, but what is, like, the clear path for you now?
Well, it's so interesting because from I kind of feel like the business and my personal life, intertwine in the sense of like what I want, like who I want to be and the type of person that I want to be. And with the business, I know that just doing body work isn't like the end all be all. And I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like from a business standpoint of how I can make, you know, there was a thing that I saw when I first started working in PT, and it was like the goal is to make an impact while making an income. And I that's really what I've stood by since I got out of, school. And I want to I don't know what route I wanna go with the business, but I also love just helping people even in this way, like, just talking about things and about mindset shifts and personal development and things like that, because that was something that I relied so heavy on when I just day to day, I would listen to self-help podcasts and really just kind of get in the minds of these people who've done it, but there was nobody in the in between of like, okay, I don't have this versus like these multimillionaires who are on these podcasts talking. And it's like, well, where's the middleman? Like, where's the person who's has a business that's like got some success, but like I'm not a millionaire. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, um, I would like to incorporate this type of stuff into my business more and ideally make an income doing that. But that's,
Yeah.
you know, we'll see where that goes.
That's so interesting that you say that because I have quite literally had the same thought. Like, I feel
Really?
like I'm in the messy middle. Like,
Yes.
there's
Yep.
the podcasts that are, like, sponsored, super successful, and I'm not that I've been the most consistent with this, but I
Right,
do
right,
feel like I am being as consistent as I can with everything that I have on my plate, and I'm wondering, okay, where are the people that are like me, where it's like we're in that in between. Like, the podcast isn't sponsored yet,
right.
but it's something that I continuously love to do, to your point, because the conversations that we have on here, they do make an impact. I get messages all the time from like episodes from 2, 3 years ago
Yep.
where they're like, oh, I listened to episode 2. I'm like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh, that was years ago, but that still made an impact. Um,
Absolutely.
so I love that you said that because I've been thinking the same thing. Like where is the where are the people in the messy middle that can help me understand how I can get a little bit like further or just do a little bit more, get a little bit more reach. But then
Yes.
at the same time, like to your point, I'm the same way where I want to make an impact and make an income, but I
Right.
also overload my plate. So
Yep.
there's a constant like the priorities just are constantly shifting. But
Yeah.
I
No, it's definitely difficult, and I think,
mhm,
like, again, I was just in Romania doing, like, a speaking event, and I had watched this girl. I don't know if you know who Jen Gottlieb is. She's just like a entrepreneur, business owner, multimillionaire, but she goes around and speaks on these stages,
mhm,
and she's been on so many podcasts, and she has a book and a whatever, and she's been my, um inspiration. And when I was speaking, I'm like, "Man, I'm having, like, my Jen Gottlieb moment," but I'm like, "Crap, I'm, like, making $0 doing this, and she's making, like, millions," and I'm like, "But, like, where is that middle ground
mhm.
where, you're not making millions and tons of money, but you're also making an impact, but then also getting, like, something from it.
Right.
Something is better than nothing." But,
Yeah.
you know
I think finding finding that middle ground, and I want to say that it's like, like boots on the ground, just keep grinding, but at the same time, I wonder, like, is there a way to get booked for speaking engagements? Because I would
Right.
love that. Same thing, like, I've
Yep.
done, like, free speeches, and I've gone
Yep.
to events and been, like, a guest speaker, but how do you
Mhm.
get from that to maybe, like, charging to maybe then, getting booked and flown out and whatever the
Right.
case may be? Like, where is that? Um
Right.
so if anyone listening knows, let us know. Like, please let us know.
Help a girl
Yeah,
out.
we're in that in between. Is doing a podcast something that you'd want to do, like running your own?
Yeah, it is, and it's always something that I've wanted to do, and I used to have these phone conversations with this girl that I worked with, and she would always say, like, "You need to have a podcast, you need to have a podcast." And I've always wanted one, and truthfully, I, like, recorded a podcast on, like, my iPhone, and I uploaded it to Spotify, and then I got really scared and took it down. But the opportunity has kind of presented itself here and there just with friends and things like that, but again, it's hard because it's like, this is obviously something that I want to do, but I can't overload my plate, and I can't again, it's about the impact, and it's not about making money right off the bat, but also, I need to be careful with my time for and my energy so then I can put it towards things that are actually making me money, like the body work and traveling for that and, things like that. So, s that's where I'm having difficulty now is especially with speaking in Romania and especially doing things like this. I know that my end goal is to maybe do more speaking and to be a motivational speaker, and that's always been my dream. But to go from body work on athletes to that, they're not really in the same wheelhouse. So it's a little bit difficult, but again, I absolutely trust in God and I absolutely trust that when you have a vision and a dream of things like that, that's not just for no reason. Like,
Right.
I truthfully believe that God puts those in our minds and in our hearts to give us a glimpse of like, okay, this is what could be. And it's not just like, oh, dangling a carrot in front of your face and saying, look, you could have this, but I'm never going to get it to you. It's like, no, you have to work for it and you have to be patient, but you also have to trust and just give it time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the exact same thing because I do think if you have a dream in your heart that you feel God put it there for a reason. And
Absolutely.
one of the things that I'm always trying to tell myself is like I don't need to know the how. I just
Mhm.
need to keep going because
Yep.
even if make a step and it's not necessarily the right direction, like, I will get redirected, whether it's, like, by choice or not. Like, there will be a correction. But in terms of, like, a podcast and getting started, like, genuinely the hardest is the first step, like,
Mhm.
getting good at recording, being consistent with it. By the time you get to, like, 5, 6, 7 episodes, it feels a lot more natural, but the first few episodes, like, it's gonna suck, and it's gonna be
Right.
hard, and you're gonna hate them, but it's never as bad as you think, and
Right.
even if just one person, like, listens and takes something away and carries it forward with them, like, that's an impact that you made. So I'm excited because when it is your time and you launch your podcast, I will be listening. Oh.
Right.
Yes.
I know, and I think it's really interesting because and honestly, that's something I think it was even Jen Gottlieb had said of, because she started out not, like, doing, speaking events that were not paid and things like that, and one of the things that she said was just, you know, speak on any platform that you can. She's like, if it's Instagram Live, if it's a volunteer thing, whatever it is, like just get out there, practice your speaking, practice, connecting with people, learn what you do and don't like. And granted, that's how everyone starts and that's just what it takes to, you know, get somewhere. But I think when you're kind of in that in between, it's a little hard to
Well,
just there and take it.
yeah, and you only have so much time in the day as well. Like, to your point, you are running a business and you need
Right.
to account for that as well as, like, travel, like, your schedule changing. So it's a little bit more difficult to have enough time in the day. Like,
Absolutely.
and you don't wanna go through life just feeling like you never have enough time. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess as far as the business goes, like, for you, what does success there look like? Once are you looking to, like, grow and scale it to a point where you can have an assistant and, like, offload things? Like, or do you want to be hands-on all the time? Like, what is your vision?
Yeah, I think my vision with the business from a bodywork standpoint is to maybe have, you know, an assistant of some type just to kind of do minor things of like whether it's scheduling or spreadsheets or more like administrative type of stuff or when I go and travel and go to the Olympia or the Arnold, that really is when I need the most help.
Mhm.
Last year when I went, I had my massage table folded up, I had two things of luggage all by myself, my carry-on, and it was a struggle, and I had a friend who met me up there who was an actual gift from God because I would have died without her. Um, but I think just having kind of like a right-hand man would be my next adventure. Um, again, it's hard. I've heard from so many clients who are like, "Oh, well, you need to open up your own place and get people who work under you and things like that." And from a business standpoint, from the bodywork perspective, yeah, that is kind of, I guess, the end goal, but I don't see that. I don't see that for myself. I
Mhm.
see more of like, speaking and making an impact and educating on recovery and um just things like that. And I don't know how I would make an income doing that, but I just don't see myself like having my own place and having people work under me and I'm the boss, blah, blah, blah. I think there's more to it than just that.
Right.
So,
Yeah, maybe it's a stepping stone, or maybe there will be somebody that you work on or that has a friend of a friend where those doors will then be opened.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. It sometimes I think it's easy to stress about it. And I really try not to because there's no sense in stressing about it. But also I try not to get wrapped up because I literally don't know what tomorrow looks like. So why am I worried about things that could happen in 5, 10, 15 years? Like, it's not a race, first of
Mhm.
all, and whatever happens, happens.
Right,
And, I think the fear of failure is big, but you can't let that win.
right. Yeah, 100%. I actually had a random thought at the Olympia and the Arnold, because those
Uh-huh.
are such big expo events. I wonder if there would be like an opportunity for you to give a speech at like the expo, because there are so
I
many different stages and so many different people who are into fitness, whether they're fans or they're in the sport or they're in powerlifting or any of the, I know that it's more than just bodybuilding that goes to
Right,
Olympia
yeah,
and Arnold. So maybe there's like an opportunity there where you can get on a
right.
stage and speak to the audience that's actually like interested in bodywork recovery, what they can do to maximize their performance. Um,
Absolutely. That was kind of what I had actually, that was what I did in Romania.
Mhm.
It was at a huge fitness expo, and I spoke on a stage that was about, like, longevity and biohack, and I talked about recovery and, how to approach it, and then I spoke on, like, a bodybuilding stage and spoke about, like, why bodywork's important for show prep and off season for bodybuilders specifically.
Mhm.
And that was perfect because it targeted, like, the general fitness population, but then it also targeted, like, the bodybuilding population.
Yeah.
I had actually reached out to Sandy Williamson because I had met her, here in Michigan, at an NPC event, and her and I were talking, and she was like I was like, "I just wanna let you know, like, this is what I do. I've worked on these athletes, blah, blah, blah." And, of course, she's the sweetest lady ever,
She
but
is.
she was like, "I think it's awesome what you're doing. This is so needed." She's all about, like, women,
Mhm.
businesses, and things like that. So I had messaged her about the, NPC Women's Workshop.
Yeah, in January.
Yes, and I was like, "That would be a perfect
Mhm.
situation," because it is like it's like an educational seminar. So I'm
Yeah.
like, but she had said that there maybe wasn't an opportunity for that just with timing and stuff, but that would probably be, like, my next goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, that would be perfect. I went to the very first iteration of that seminar that they did
Yeah.
back in, I think it was 2022 or
Yeah, it
2023.
was just a few years ago.
Yeah, they just started it, and it's all women, it's, like, very bodybuilding focused, bikini, wellness, figure, so it's perfect.
I know. Yeah.
Um, that would be great. I actually Are you familiar with, like, Sean? She does, like, the couture cuties.
I don't think
Um,
so.
I'll send her profile over to you. She runs a women's retreat once per year as well, and I know she's located on the East Coast.
Oh,
Um
cool. Yeah.
but it's very similar to, like, the women's seminar.
Right.
She does it as, like, an event, you pay a ticket, but there's, like, vendors, guest speakers, pros, Olympians, and it's all bodybuilding focused, but she does do guest speakers, like, she's always asking for, um, guest speakers, so
Oh,
I'll send her
interesting.
information your way because I
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
think that
that
would
would
be
be
really
great.
good.
Yeah,
Um
and it's so hard because, you want to I don't wanna ever put myself in a box of like, "Oh, well, I only talk about this, or I only do that, or it's only about bodybuilders," but it's like, what I do is so specific and it is so niche, like, I think that it's okay to be like, "This is what I prefer to do, and this is what my goal is," and I think it's helpful to keep a direction of, like, where I wanna go, because otherwise, it's like, "Well, I could do this or I could do that," and which is a good thing, but it's like the possibilities are endless,
Yeah.
but then you almost don't have a sense of direction, and, I think it's you have to have a vision, and that vision can change, but just, like, stay on the course
Right.
in line with that vision, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I think in the times that I've, like, been with a business mentor and whatever, he used to always tell us, like, it's okay to be niche, like, it's okay to, like,
Yeah.
lean into your niche
Uh-huh.
and get really, really good at that or go where you wanna go with that because you can always pivot and change and, like, I can even see it on Instagram, like, there are bodybuilding coaches that pivot into, like, business coaches or
Mhm.
pivot into life coaches, and, like, that's a different thing, but you can always, like, get the experience or get the like, build the momentum that you need in that one area, and then you can pivot, and
Right,
I think also what's really cool is, like, recovery, yes, it is very physical, but there's also that mental component. So I think there's always ways that you can work mindset into it.
right.
So then that pivot or the change, whenever that case may be, it makes
Mhm.
sense. Like it wouldn't be something that's like that doesn't add up. Like
Right,
it would be a
yeah,
very natural transition. But yeah, I think that that's something that's always stuck with me is, like, it's not a bad thing to be niche because I used to be like, "Oh, well, I wanna help all women," and he was like,
right,
"You
right.
can, but, like, you're really good at this one thing, like, you're really
Uh,
good at bikini athletes, so, like, get really, really good at that, get known for that, and then you'll just have more opportunity to pivot or to open up or expand." But, like, if you're too expansive at first, too general, then it's kind of like throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks, and you're not really, like, a master. So it's like, get
Absolutely,
good at
yeah.
one thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just having this, discussion with one of my clients the other day because we were talking about bodybuilding and things like that, and I was like, "I don't ever wanna put myself in a box," but also that's why I'm very selective with, the way I advertise and the way I, market and or maybe lack thereof marketing because it's not for everyone, and what I do, you don't have to know about what it is, but you have to understand the purpose behind it, and not everyone falls in that, like, in that category, and
Right.
that's okay, but, you have to know what you're getting into in order to, get the most benefit out of it.
Right. And I think that as well, like, running your business the way that you want to, that's
Mhm.
always gonna lead you the way that you wanna go.
Right.
Because everybody could tell you, like, everybody's gonna have opinions and things of like, "Oh, you should do this or that," but at the end of the day, like, you know what feels intuitively right in your heart, and when you're acting in that way, you're not gonna go wrong. So,
Absolutely.
I think I'm trying to think if there's, like, anything else that I want to talk about. I guess if you had to sum up the message that you want to leave behind, um, what would that be?
Like, in life or just with today?
Let's do both. Let's do today and then in general, like in life.
Okay, so I think for today, the message that I wanna, like, leave with people is that and this is such a cliche thing to say, but truly, like and take it from me, you are one decision away from a completely different life, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to be okay with your circumstances, but know that you have the power to, like, go after what you want, or, you are the only one who stands in your own way, and I think oftentimes and I was so guilty of this, just making excuses or making just thinking, "Oh, well, I can't do that. Like, she's doing it, but I can't do that." And it's like, "Why?" Like, there is nothing on this earth that qualifies me more than anybody else to be doing what I'm doing, and the only difference is that I took a risk and I had faith. Like, God has all the credit for what's happened in the last year, but it's not about me. It's not for my personal gain. It's to be leaned into faith and to, you know, show what's possible when you have faith. So, I guess that would be kind of my life
Yeah.
one too. It all ties together.
They go hand in
Um
hand.
yeah, exactly. But no, I really think it's just kind of just trust yourself, and take a risk. And also another thing that I wanna share, again, more on the spiritual side of things, one thing that I heard that really has changed a lot for me is God or the universe or whatever you believe in, like, God is not surprised by what's happening in your life. So everything that happens to you in your life is a surprise to us. Like, starting the business, me quitting my job, me getting divorced, all these life shifts that have happened, losing friendships. I'm surprised by it, but God's not. Like, so I think when you have that understanding of like, no, this is the way that things were meant to go, you have peace in knowing, like, okay, this felt like a wrong decision, but I know this is actually a correct decision.
Mhm.
So that's my 2 cents.
I love that. I think I saw something like spray painted the other day in my neighborhood, and it was like, "Man makes plans and God laughs." And
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
I was like, "Yes." I always see messages, like
I know. And I think it's really hard. It's really hard to not like keep going back to that, especially when you do lean more into like your spirituality and you do get more connected to that. It's hard to not see that in everything.
Mhm,
And again, whatever you believe is whatever you believe, but like you have to understand that there is something that's way bigger than us. And whether for you it's the universe, whether it's for you it's destiny, God, whoever, like you have to understand that when you give it up, that's what takes control. Like you have to put it outside of yourself in order for it to flourish. And that's just how it works. Like I don't make the rules.
right. Yeah, exactly. I I mean, I couldn't say it better myself. I don't make the rules.
We just yeah.
Um, I think in terms of, like let me see, we have about, like, 5 minutes left. Is there anything that I didn't ask you or that you wanna talk about in the last few minutes that we have?
Honestly, nothing specifically. I think just being able to come back on the pod and have this discussion, even with I've still been listening to your stuff even in the last year. Um, I think even just for me, I want to say to you, like you can tell also that there's been just a change in growth and spirituality. I think again, it just kind of shines through and it just comes out in the way that you speak and present yourself and what you're putting out there. And it's really hard to go through things in life, but people can tell when you're following what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, for both of us, I've noticed some things along the way, even just with following each other, that there have been some parallels that have happened in the last year. And I didn't realize you also went through a breakup, and I'm also sorry to hear about that.
It's all
Um,
good.
right. But, I think everyone is always struggling with something, but I think that we are a lot more alike in ways than we're not.
Mhm.
And that was really why I wanted to come on here today because I'm like, I know that I'm not the only one who's gone through either something like this or had this mindset shift. Like, I know you have had such a mindset shift. And I think when you can just kind of like come together and help people get there, that's what I relied on years ago. And I would like to be that for people. And I'm sure you feel the same with having the podcast.
Yeah, I do. I think we're both here to help others, like you said, and to serve, and one of the best ways we can do that is using our own experiences, whether it is, like, trials and tribulations or it's, like, the wins and the highs, like, I'm a big believer in the experiences that we have, like, we can gain wisdom from, and then we can help others. Whether that is like being a listening ear, being able to understand, or being able to tell them, like, hey, I went through this really hard thing too. I got through it. You can get through it. Like, there's
Absolutely.
nothing special about us in terms of like the challenges we faced. Like, everybody
Right.
goes through challenges, but if we can come out the other side and still have, you know, an open, loving heart towards others, like I think that that's what's most important. So,
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
yeah, I appreciate that. I'm glad that, you've still been listening to the podcast. I feel
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I need to get consistent with it. So
No,
I'm
it's so hard.
it is, but something that you said today that I've definitely, like, taken away is instead of overloading my plate with things that maybe aren't getting me closer to my ultimate goal, like, I need to cut the fluff a little bit. I need to be better about saying no to things that don't serve me because that is, my self-inflicted downfall. I, like, always want
Mhm.
to help, so I say yes very eagerly, and then I realize I have stretched myself thin. So
Mhm.
that is something that I am gonna get better about, and I'm going to put it out here so that everybody can hold me accountable.
Yeah.
Um, but I just I appreciate you being here and, like, being so open and willing to share your story because I do think that a lot of people have gone through a tough year, and we're always going through things. Like, to your
Right.
point, everybody on this earth is going through something that we don't see. So, as long as we can navigate the world with a little bit more kindness and empathy towards others, I think that that's the only thing that we can do, and just keep showing
Absolutely.
up. But
Yeah.
it's just so lovely to have you on here. I appreciate you being here,
Yeah,
and
no,
I'm sure that this
thanks so
won't be the
much.
last time. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I know now we need to make it like a an
I
annual
know.
thing.
An annual check-in, yeah. Well, we don't have to wait that long. I definitely would love to have you back on. We can, talk about literally anything, and this can be a way that you can start to practice your public speaking if you want. Like, I'm always open to speak about anything, so,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you, having me on and, you know, talking about anything, so
Yeah, of course, anytime. I am going to wrap things up. As always, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here. It really helps me if you like, share, subscribe, send this podcast to a friend, send it to somebody who you think could gain something from the conversation. Um, if you want to work with me, information will be in the like links and things below. And then Marissa, go ahead. Where can people find you?
So you can find me all on Instagram. It's M Morose Bodywork. And yeah, you can see what I'm all about. You can book on there if you're local to Michigan. But if you are going to be at the Olympia or the Arnold, feel free to message me. I would love to connect with people and just have a conversation or just say hi or give you a hug, whatever you need.
Yes. And your information will be all in the show notes below as well. I'll put her Instagram. You guys can reach out there. And please reach out, especially if you're going to be at the Olympia or the Arnold. But for now, thank you everybody so much for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode. Stay relentless.